We'll just wait for another minute. It's 1 minute to 4:30, so we'll start at 4:30.
Yeah, I think it's now streaming, so it might be worth starting, and it's pretty full anyway. I think everybody's on time today.
Yeah, and we've reached 100, so
Yeah,
I think we're good to go.
Okay. So hello and welcome once again to this session of Community of Practice. And thank you very much for attending our sessions. And again, it is a Saturday afternoon. I know you might have foregone your sleep or maybe some other family commitment, and you're here with us. But that just shows that we're all motivated to kind of learn from one another so that our students have better experiences. So thank you very much. I'm Jayashree Iyer, and with me I have Neha today, who is one of the directors at Adhyayan. And of course, we also have Kavita Anand. I'll be introducing her a little more, a little later in the session. And we have, of course, Annette and Gauri, who help us with everything that is to do at the back end. Thank you very much, Annette and Gauri. So today is the third part of the three-part webinar series on socio-emotional learning. And as educators and as leaders, school leaders, we we know that SEL is an incredibly important part of the school learning. And healthy learning and development is impossible without safe environments, strong relationships, and the capacity of students to confront difficult challenges. And the COVID-19 pandemic has now added renewed urgency to the work of providing students and educators, and of course, the school community with the capacity to process and to respond to trauma. We all know our students and educators and teachers have lost many of their loved ones. They have seen parents lose their jobs, and educators might have themselves lost jobs. Many of us have also experienced deep uncertainty about the future, and we've been, needless to say, struggling with remote teaching and learning. So with all these struggles, it's extremely important that socio-emotional learning becomes an important part of our teaching and learning. Students have also reported that school closure has actually impacted their lives through increased isolation, through loneliness, anxiety, stress, sadness. So now today, as we are reopening schools, and I know many schools are in different stages of their reopening, but as we think of reopening, what is really important is to kind of support students with safe school environment, and we need to have a kind of engaged learning experiences for them that really emphasize on socio-emotional competencies. So like self-awareness, self-reflection, communication, interpersonal skills, and to be able to cope with their stress and anxiety. So in the last two episodes of the three-part webinar series, we heard our expert panelists talk about what is SEL. SEL is important for not just students, but for adults as well. That was really emphasized by one of our panelists in the first session. And the SEL, what she defined SEL was about, it is a process through which students and adults acquire and apply the knowledge, skills, and attitudes to develop healthy relationships, manage emotions, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain supportive relationships, and make responsible and caring decisions. In the second session, we heard our panelists talk about the need to adopt a curricular framework to meaningfully integrate socio-emotional learning and thereby develop the whole breadth of physical, social, emotional, communication, and along with cognitive skills for all students to thrive. So in that sense, we've really talked about what is SEL and why is it important and how can we really incorporate it in the classroom and how does it look like in the classroom. So today we will be talking about how can leaders ensure that there is an environment in school, a school culture, a school climate where SEL can really thrive. And before we go on, before I go on to really introduce our panelists and go on to the session, I would request all of us to just kind of pause here for a minute and think about our own school, our own organizations in the last 1 or 1.5 years, ever since the pandemic has struck and we've gone on to virtual learning, to think about what are some of the steps that we took for implementing SEL for our students, and also what are some difficulties or distractions or disruptions that came in the way of really implementing these. What were some of the difficulties that we faced? So let's think about ourselves and type in these. I would request you to go on to the chat, and there is a Padlet link that is put up for you. Or if you can't find it, I would request Annette to once again put it there for you. I think Neha has already put it. You will be able to access this Padlet link. Go on to the Padlet link and you will see two columns. The first column, the question is, what are some of the steps you've taken for SEL in your organization? And the second column talks about what are the disruptions or the difficulties that you faced. So if we could just quickly take 2 minutes and type in these. We can see some inputs coming up. So there is bubble time, there is interactive classrooms, teachers asking the students about their well-being. There is sure the children have time to talk. Yoga sessions, okay, music that helps them feel calm. Group work and peer work, interactive sessions with parents, okay. Yeah, there's a lot of interactions, social interactions, opportunities given for students and teachers to interact with others, yes. And the difficulties you can see is paucity of time, okay. Parents interrupting, okay. Difficult to establish relationships when during remote learning, when students have videos turned off. Yes, certainly when you don't see the faces, then you can't really, then the relationship, creating relationships is a little difficult. Students don't want to interact online, okay. Number of activity sessions. Is that a disruption, or students don't want to interact? Okay. So there are several that are coming up. So on the whole, what I see is there have been attempts for having teacher-student conversations with parents, interactive lessons, and some group work that many schools have attempted. However, because of the online mode and the videos being turned off, so I think there have been disruptions and it has been difficult to create relationships. So yes, as you keep typing more responses, I would just kind of start introducing our panel. So today is a special day because we have students with us, and it's always a delight and such a pleasure to listen to students. And so maybe many times as students, as teachers and leaders, we might be taking a lot of steps, we might be having a lot of practices in our school, but unless we really listen to student voices to hear the impact, the circle is not complete. So we have students today, and we have from two campuses of CMS. We have Aditi Shukla, Aditya Kumar, and Jeshna Gupta from Aliganj 2 campus. And we have Janvi Yadav, Abhijit Singh, and Swarnima Yadav from CMS Anand Nagar campus. So these CMS schools are in Lucknow, and along with these students, we have Mr. Roshan Gandhi. He is the CEO of the City Montessori Schools in Lucknow. And incidentally, City Montessori Schools is the world's largest group of schools. They have 20 campuses with 57,000 students. And they are scattered across Lucknow in several different areas of the city of Lucknow. And Roshan Gandhi is a graduate from the University of Oxford with an MBA in educational leadership from University College London. He has also worked in and continues to consult for various educational technology companies. Roshan is a frequent speaker at educational conferences in India and internationally, and often publishes on many educational topics. And I've heard Roshan say that unless we take care of our teachers' well-being, we will not be able to take care of our students' well-being. And that is how close SEL is to his heart. And today we're going to listen to him talking about how across 20 campuses and across such a huge faculty and such a large number of students, how he's attempting and to really create a culture in all the schools where SEL becomes a part of the core curriculum. So we are delighted to have you, Roshan. Thank you so much. We are eager to listen to you. And speaking with Roshan and our beloved students is going to be Kavita Anand. And as many of you know, Kavita is the co-founder and the executive director of Adhyayan Quality Education Services. And Kavita's years in the education sector include teaching in Mumbai's Elphinstone College, undertaking research on schools, working for the Aga Khan Education Services, India, and the Sir Ratan Tata Trust. Her early experience in entrepreneurship as a sole proprietor of Active Learning Center, through which she set up and ran a play school, Kids at Play, prepared her for the task of setting up and leading Shishuan School, Mumbai, as its founding executive director. She was the sole consultant for the setup of Sri Manubhai A. Sheth, Rampur, and Don Bosco International School, Mumbai, and is on the board of the Somaya School, Mumbai from its inception. She co-founded Adhyayan Services in 2011 and Adhyayan Foundation in 2015 with the aim of developing a network of 100,000 school leader influencers who would transform the quality of schooling in India. The combined reach of both these organizations is currently 8,000 plus school leaders. She is a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts, UK. She is also an Ashoka Fellow. She has presented papers at many national and international platforms. She also has several publications to her credit. And personally for me, Kavita has been my mentor, and I look up to her for her knowledge, her skills, her vast experience, and most importantly, the trust, the respect, and sensitivity she demonstrates to everyone around her. I'm sure everyone who is present here today who knows her will agree with me that she is indeed a great source of inspiration. So glad to have you, Kavita. And now it's over to you. We are looking forward to listen to your conversation with Mr. Roshan Gandhi and our beloved students who are here today. Over to you.
Thank you, Jayashree. It's lovely to be part of the community, and I think it's like a dream coming true to see more and more people joining in. I think we now have begun to have like our full. We'll have to really rethink the Zoom capacity because we don't have more. We have a thing that says this is 100, and then you know please watch it on YouTube. And we find that YouTube is also now getting a good subscription in terms of the live streaming of this session. So I think we can begin with a very quick sense of it was always very helpful to have had psychology as my my bachelor's and master's subjects, because that kind of gave legitimacy to what I was trying to do. But setting up Shishuvan, I was very clear that it has to be a meaningful space for students, and that was the big thrust was children should be able to feel confident in school, not after school. So the idea wasn't that, okay, you go away, you have whatever 12 years of schooling, and then afterwards you're supposed to become suddenly transformed into this very confident, amazing person. And that never sort of worked for me, because I think for me it was always about, like, how can you do that on a daily, ongoing basis? How can your schooling become something that is a meaningful process every day that you look forward to, where you know that you've shifted from what you were the day before to the next day, because if that happens, you become a learner for life, and that the excitement of learning then just continues to happen forever. So that was the sort of approach to it, and I feel it's really exciting to meet other people and other people who run schools and own schools who feel and think the same way. And so it's been an absolute pleasure to work with City Montessori School, a school that's got one of the youngest CEOs at the moment that I know of, who's leading the space. And Roshan, I'm so delighted that you are here for this conversation today. So let's hear from you a very quick, we've all known about the fact that going online has been tough for everybody. So let's hear from you. How tough has it been for the management? Forget about it. Let's first start with you before we get on to teachers and students. I mean, how difficult was this for you as a person in charge of 55,000 students and their well-being?
Well, thank you so much, Kavita and the Adhyayan team for having me today. Delighted to be part of this community, and really, really happy that you've chosen to take up this topic in a 3-part series, because it's such a vitally important topic. So I'm honored to be part of this. How difficult was it for the management? Not as difficult as it sounds, potentially, simply because I think, when we had to make this switch to online learning, I got the strong impression that the teachers across the organization, of which there are about 2,000 plus teachers, they did not switch to online learning because they were being pushed or cajoled by the management or their principals. No one was breathing down their neck to say that they have to do this. I think they did it because they saw the need that their children had. I think they did it because they have this sense of intrinsic belief that it is their duty to look after the interests of their children, and they knew that those children would be left behind, and they would be in an isolated state, and they would lose learning if they did not make the effort required to bring the learning online in as high quality a way as possible. So I think it was very much driven by the teachers' own conscience and sense of duty towards their kids that they made the effort required to switch to online learning. So for them, they put in a huge amount of hard work and hard grind, which meant that at this level, of course, we had our own set of challenges and things, but in terms of we didn't have to convince people to switch to online learning. That was an independent action.
Lovely. I think that tells me that there was something that you've mentioned, but that this is almost like evidence of that, which is that there is a strong conscience built, or a strong love or a relationship that exists between the teachers and the students. And it's not something that is necessarily, the way in which the world looks at a private school. Because typically, the conversation that I've heard happen is, well, at the end of the day, it's a business, and people do a business, and teaching is a business, and you have people doing tuition, and all of the issue around how does a school therefore get sort of perceived by not just their parents but the entire world around them. So the fact that you've been able to establish the relationship tells us that you're exactly where we would like most schools to be, and that is at a space where the child is important. The child is the center of your universe, and that the teachers have been able to get that sense. Now, I know that you have a strong ideology, and that sort of backs that. And for the last 50 years of existence, you've made that very apparent. So, would you like to talk a little about how did that relationship get so strong? It's not something that you take for granted. It's how does it move from school as something that is done because you have to set up a school and educate all these children versus a school that loves the children and believes in their needs, keeps that center stage. So does that take doing? Does that take building? Or does that come automatically?
I think it absolutely takes doing and building, as you put it. Our schools were founded by Dr. Jagdish and Dr. Bharati Gandhi with some values that were held very dear, at the very center of what the school is about. Values of global citizenship in particular, and of developing good moral character in students. And I think in order to achieve those values, there's been an undercurrent throughout the organization's history that the child is very much at the center. Whatever, we are a private school, but you were talking about private schools being perceived as businesses and things like that. We proudly function, in a non-profit way. So whatever income the school generates, that is pumped back into services, for the students ultimately. The focus right from the level of the founders has always been on trying to provide maximum possible opportunities for the kids and do whatever we possibly can to empower our kids to become leaders in the world going forward. So that's an attitude which runs deep in the culture of the organization, thanks to the way that the organization was founded and the leaders that the organization has developed over the decades.
Right. So a lot of corporate organizations will bring back their values and regularly talk about them. We hear that the meetings begin with a sort of a reiteration of values in organizations that hold them very close. I think the way I've seen City Montessori function is that almost every activity of yours kind of is built around the values that you have, and that's been pretty remarkable. If you were to look at the sort of the way in which it cascades down your attention or interest in, say, the management having an interest in principals, to the principals having an interest in teachers, and the teachers having an interest in the children, that entire relationship, the entire line of that relationship, how would you say you as a person coming into a space which is where you've now been here now for 5 years, I think, or so. How have you sort of looked at it and learned from it, and what is it that you would like to see happen more and more increasingly? And I know you've recently had an event, so I'd like to hear about that as well as we proceed.
Well, you're absolutely right. And even here, the founders have made a point over the years of as you suggested, starting pretty much every meeting, every event, everything with a reiteration of the core values. And those values are sort of, they're pasted across every publication of the school, and they're painted on the walls of the school lobbies and everything. The core values that we hold dear, and so they seep into the culture of the school. And a lot of specific effort has been made over the decades to sort of provide opportunities for those values to be directly addressed, particularly through events and co-curricular activities. For example, one of the core value is this idea of unity of religions and unity of races and unity of countries, which we want to kind of instill that attitude in our children. So in our events, we have a series of items which our children are involved in. For example, there's something called the all religion prayer. So we have children donning the traditional dress and costumes of different religious communities, and kind of singing the prayers of those communities all together in a big amalgamation. So you could have a child from a Hindu background performing a song from Muslim tradition or something like that, and a complete range. So that idea of oneness and the continuation and the similarities between the values of the different religions is reflected through that. So this is what we've done over the years, and now we're at a threshold where we're trying to build on this legacy where our values have seeped into everything we do, to take it to the next level where our values can be even more directly incorporated inside each and every classroom. So, the challenge that we've set ourselves is can we have every lesson plan demonstrating a reflection of the values that we hold dear? So when we talk about global citizenship, the idea that we want our children to see themselves as members of one global human race and see themselves as having some sort of moral obligation to go out in the world and make a positive contribution in their communities and the society and beyond. That's something we've done through our cultural events and through the rhetoric that we've espoused over the decades. Now, can we reflect that in every lesson plan throughout the curriculum? So we've just begun an extensive exercise of reviewing the entire curriculum so that, for example, world issues are reflected in the subjects that are discussed. So we're starting with drawing, because it's such a vast field where we need a starting point. So we've collectively decided that the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, there are these 17 goals set before the countries of the world to achieve certain targets on world issues. Can we draw upon them to include elements of them in our core curriculum? And that enables us to really sort of, the idea is that in every classroom, children will have an opportunity to discuss these ideas and to learn their core subjects and the skills that they need to learn through discussion of the ideas, so that these things happen in parallel.
Right. I think that's brilliant. I'd encourage anybody watching this and listening in to also begin to start their questions, because I think that's really important. And Roshan, as you can understand, what I'm trying to do is trying to unpack from the management point of view, from the people who sort of manage the largest school in Asia, to say how does it weigh heavily on your shoulders that you have to have this understanding of a human being as a whole, understanding how learning actually depends so much on how you feel about yourself as a learner, right? And how you develop a relationship with your learning or the subjects that you're learning through the teachers that teach you. Otherwise, you don't really have any other avenue as a student to directly sort of engage with something, right? So I think here is where it comes into, and therefore, when we're looking at it from a strong value set to the classroom, that policy to practice requires a certain structure or a framework. So it requires you to make time in a timetable. It requires you to begin to think of the human resource that you need to have, what kind of work that will happen to make those lesson plans the way that you want them to be. So there's a lot of work that goes behind it. It might not, to a person walking into a school and walking into a classroom, it looks like, hey, this is very exciting to see this stuff happening. But they don't perhaps see all the work that goes behind the scenes in making that possible for a child, right? And I think that's what I want to know a little more about in terms of, so when you're thinking about doing this, and how do you sort of see, what kind of interventions do you see that's going to build on this aspect that we're talking about today of a child? That when you go into the classroom and you see those lessons, what will you see which will address the aspect of social needs of a child, the emotional needs of a child, and how do you see that playing out? And also, how do you see it playing out for teachers first, before they can address include it for students?
Yeah, as you said in the end there, I believe it really starts from the teachers. The goal is, of course, to reflect this for the students, but to achieve that, we need to start from the level of teachers. So, if we want, social emotional learning to be a reality in every classroom, we need teachers who, first of all, believe in the importance of this and believe in it enough that they create time in their lesson plans and in what they're doing to make that a priority, because otherwise, there's so much syllabus to be covered, there's so much to do, that this can get left behind. So, what we as an organization, or as you were asking, as a management are trying to do, are trying to develop the mechanisms that are needed to empower teachers to do that independently, right? Because there's no use just telling them that we want this to happen. They need to be empowered with the space and time and resources and skills to make that happen. So, what is social emotional learning? I'm sure you've already covered that in previous sessions in this series, and that's a whole debate to be had, and there's so much to it. But some aspects of it which we could quickly pick upon as examples are that, in a classroom, you need, if children are not sort of given the opportunity to collaborate with their peers, they're not developing the social skills that we're looking for. And if they're not given the opportunity to express their views and their ideas, then that emotional aspect is also suppressed, right? So the ideas of sort of collaboration and communication are core here. Now, it's all very well us talking about how important collaboration and communication are to the social and emotional well-being of our students, but how do we make that a reality? So, first of all, we can derive certain specific classroom strategies, which perhaps were not prioritized previously, but now we see, okay, we need to make this a priority. So peer learning, or the introduction of activities in the class where children can break out into small groups and work collaboratively on something, that requires that the teacher is provided with the requisite training, essentially, to be able to deliver that effectively, and B, that there's time and space in the curriculum as a whole to accommodate that. So as an organization, these are the steps we're taking, therefore. So we're actively undergoing a process right now of trying to reduce the size, the sheer quantity of syllabus material that exists, because when we've done a deep dive into some of the textbooks and some of the materials that we've traditionally accepted as necessary for the curriculum, we've realized that there are things which, frankly, are surplus to requirement, that aren't really enhancing a student's learning. We've got the directive principles of state policy and grand ideas being talked about in class 5 social studies textbooks, and you think, well, what are they actually learning here? They're probably just memorizing these words, and let's take it to the older kids, and let's eliminate it from the curriculum here. And there's stuff across all subjects that can be reduced to create a little bit more breathing space in the timetable. And then we're empowering teachers with the equipment and the professional development to engage in other teaching methodologies which further save time, specifically flipped learning and blended learning, where some of the basic imparting of the syllabus can take place outside of the classroom, right? So there's more time in the classroom for these activities to take place. And again, and to support all of this, we have declared a policy of timetabling regular professional development activities for our teachers every week. So we reduce some of the lessons on certain days in order to create the space and time for teachers to be constantly in an ongoing process of professional development, where there are coaches and more experienced teachers and subject leaders who are sort of facilitators to these teachers, identifying the specific areas in which teachers need support or can be helped to improve, and then providing that direct support so that each and every teacher kind of gets a personalized professional development path for them, so that they can achieve these learning goals in the classroom, which the ultimate end of which leads to better social and emotional learning.
Wow. So that's great. I think since you're doing that, I just want to say I've had a lot of conversations with college students about, like, what's the one thing that you never learned in school that you really, really wish you had learned, right? And most of it sort of starts off with, perhaps trying to, at some level, shock me into, because that's it's a question they don't really anticipate. So they'll come up with the usual thing of sex education, and we wish we'd learned more about gender, and stuff like that. And then it goes into everything possible. It goes into like how to do budgeting, how to kind of deal with forms, how to look at finance for ourselves, how to look at being able to live in a different country or a different city. So it's really about a wide-ranging bunch of things which have nothing to do with science and mathematics and English, and So how does one make space in a busy schedule for children who are dying to have conversations or trying to get knowledge about something that really bothers and interests them, but is not in the syllabus, so to speak?
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, even I myself feel sometimes that I wish I'd learned these things in school. When you talk about budgeting and how to file my tax returns and all of this stuff, we never learned to do that. And so when it comes to creating space and time, I mean, first of all, it needs to be a priority for the leadership that this sort of thing is important. But I think the kinds of specific examples that we've just mentioned briefly are almost a little bit on the more avant-garde side of the spectrum. Now, that doesn't mean we shouldn't do them, but in order to make them a reality, I think a bit more multi-stakeholder engagement is required. I think if you start reducing core subject time to introduce these things, the school might be happy, the kids might be happy, but then we might have parents who come and complain and say, well, what are you doing? Why are you wasting time, right? So I think a lot of sensitization needs to be happening with the parents. But I think that the broad thing that all school leaders and in turn teachers need to understand now is that the world is changing so much faster than it's ever been changing before. Even before the pandemic, it was starting to, the pace of change and technological progress was exponential. And now with the pandemic, it's gone even faster. So I think, we're essentially preparing students for a world full of uncertainty. And meanwhile, the access to knowledge and information and the ability to just Google stuff about science and whatever it is becoming so much easier that loading children's brains with this information is not really the key priority of education. Yes, of course, they need to be facilitated to learn basic information. They need to have an understanding of topics and concepts and memorized information that they, before searching online, but that's not the goal. The goal is for them to have skills that will lead them to thrive in modern, evolving workplaces, the ability to adapt to new situations constantly, the ability to apply whatever knowledge they have to different situations, the ability to search for and find information and become discerning consumers of this vast range of information that is out there, to discern between fake news and proper news and all of that. So these are the skills we need. The basic purpose of what we're doing as educators needs to be to empower children with these skills. And I think if we have that focus as leaders, if that's our priority, then we will find a way to make space and time by reducing the less important stuff and bringing this in.
That's brilliant. So I think that we've got your students here, so we can hear from them what this approach and this understanding and this attitude is, how that's actually getting into the classroom and how that's making a difference. And I can see somebody wanting to ask you a question. Shubham is wanting to ask you a question from the participant.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, I'm I'm part of the student, I'm one of the students, and I'm from Vishwajit High School from Mumbai, Navi Mumbai, Maharashtra.
Yes, we've had you on a panel before, Shubham, so I recognize.
Whatever you wanted to say about how SEL works and how it would work and how you would like people to speak about it. And I'm actually thinking I would love SEL to be implemented in schools. It's something that we haven't had in a while. Teachers are actually understanding us instead of just coming and just saying, now today's exercise you're supposed to jot down 10 pages of history. Instead of that, you actually get teachers who recognize you. They get your mood, they get your attention, they get whatever you want to do.
Yeah, that's great, Shubham. So is there a question attached to what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am. Your question was wholly attached. I'm technically answering your question.
I see. All right.
Yes,
thank you for that. Thanks. So today I'm inviting 6 of the students from City Montessori School to talk about the what's happening in their class. Exactly, what Shubham is saying. What's happening, because let's just take a moment to remember the word that was used about the fast-paced changing world, and what that does to a student who has to deal with uncertainty. That's the key sort of word of the day. And let's ask the students from City Montessori that in their classrooms, what are the opportunities they have to deal with or make sense of what's going on around them. What is it that is helping that to happen, and what is inhibiting that? So can we have the students please identify Jayashree, and would you like to bring them on board here?
Yes, Swarnima. Aditya Kumar.
And just Swarnima, Aditya Kumar.
I can see Aditi came in for a brief
Yeah,
moment.
Aditi. We have Swarnima, Janvi, and Abhijit from Anand Nagar.
Yeah.
And Aditi, Aditya Kumar, and Jeshna from Aliganj too.
Yeah. So hello and a very warm welcome to all of you. Lovely to see you here. I think you've heard about the fact that, for a student, the world is not going to be what it was like for me when I was a student. And even for Roshan, even though he's like much closer to age than you than I am, it's still going to be different from his experience of when he was a student. So how do you identify that? I mean, what do you think, given the way the last 16 months have been and the pandemic and this new virus that people have to live with and are realizing is existing in the world, how do you feel right now about being a student who doesn't have school to go to, right? I mean, you're sitting at home for I don't know how long now, and maybe you've had one or two opportunities to go to school because there was a time when we thought, okay, it's all over, and then the second wave came and that was the end of it. It was back again. So just in terms of like, how does it feel to not have been part of regular school for this long? Yeah, please go ahead, Aditi.
Ma'am, as we know, students have been sitting home since 1.5 years. It has been very stressful, and we got a chance in between to go to school, but that wasn't also for very long. And I think it has been very stressful for students, and it was not very interesting to be on this online platform for such a long time.
Yeah, that's true. I think all of us are having fatigue or Zoom fatigue. Is poor Zoom is getting bad named, like Xerox used to get a bad name for photocopying. But yeah. So what about the others? Anybody else would like to say, how does it feel right now? What have you seen happen to the students in your class and to yourself? Doesn't have to be only you. Swarnima, would you like to? Yeah, Aditya.
And sometimes being at home, I feel bored. Like being in that sense doesn't come like being in a classroom and being at home. However, the studies are going on and they are going on nice studies are going on and the teachers are working very hard. But then also that feel is not coming while staying at home and while in the school. So I would say that
I think your
feeling that.
teachers would echo what you're saying as well. They also would rather be in school with you than at home. But yes, absolutely right. So what is that feeling? Swarnima, what is it that you would identify as? What is that feeling? Like he's saying, it's not the same feeling. So what is that feeling?
Ma'am, the feeling is like, I would say I like the sensation of our friends nearby, like studying with a group instead of studying online is, like, I would say better, because in a group we all are together, and not only studies, we do many other things as well. But then studying online is also like fine, I would say, because something is better than nothing. And for right now we have this facility, so I'm grateful for this. But then I'm really missing my friends and sitting together in a classroom having fun and other activities also.
Thank you. Janvi, you wanted to add to that as well.
Yeah, so first of all, good evening, everyone. So I would like, for me, my experience would be like in the starting, I was like so kind of happy because it was like new mode of learning, online mode of learning. Like since so many years, I've been doing this traditional method, but then now online mode of learning, I was kind of happy, and getting introduced to new apps and new methods of learning. It was very fascinating for me. But then later we got like used to it, and then it became like sort of boredom. It was like, for how long do we have to look at those screens and get up and then sit in front of mobile phones and with no movement. In school we were like going upstairs, downstairs, moving here and there, and then even interacting with the teachers face to face. But then now, even if I talk about myself, then I do open my cameras, but then if my peers, they are somewhat shy to open, but so we do want to see all of our friends interacting, but then it's all about their shyness, they stop, which stops them. So it's of getting boring now. So but then for me in the starting, it was a good experience.
Sure. Yeah, so something new is always exciting. Of course, it's interesting that, most schools used to say children should not have even a mobile phone and would be anti-screens. And then now you find that this is the only mode of being able to connect with students. And that is a total change of, perspective for a lot of adults, let me tell you that. So Jashna, given that, what is it that you have as a space in your school to be able to talk about these feelings of boredom, of sadness, of feeling isolated? Do you have such spaces in your timetable or within your school time?
Like we have council sessions which help the students to interact more with the teacher and build their self-confidence. So if we have like the counselor sessions, so the student will be more confident to talk with teacher and turn on the camera. So these counselor sessions should happen so that the student is more confident and enthusiastic to study. So I think there should be these interactive classes in the classes so that the student is more interested in studying the online classes.
Sure, sure. So do you have any such facility, Shubham? Like, does that happen in your school? I can see Swarnama nodding, so.
Ma'am, actually, it doesn't really happen in our school that much. Like, it doesn't,
So,
we don't have counselor sessions and stuff. Like, that does
sorry,
not
so
happen.
I think it was Shubham raising his hand, which is why I could see his name over here.
Yes, ma'am. I
So
was actually raising my hand.
Yeah. So I'm just going to ask Abhijit, can you lower your hand when you finish, Shubham? Otherwise, I tend to sort of look at all those people who've raised their hands. Your hand is up a lot. So
Yes,
can you lower it as well now? Yeah. Abhijit, you want to add to that?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, our school has been organizing these e-counselors room where the students can have personalized one-on-one session with the school counselor and can share the emotional and the social hardships faced by them either at their homes or at the school. And it just allows students to get things off the chest and be more comfortable and lighthearted. And I've talked to some of my friends who've been part of these e-counselor sessions, and they found them really helpful in coping with the stress and anxiety during these tough times.
Right, that's great. So is there a sense that you have that there are things that students need to talk to adults about rather than to each other or to their friends? Or do you find that it's easily possible for you to talk to your friends instead of talking to teachers or counselors? What is the preferred person that you go to usually? Who would like to? Okay, Janvi, yeah.
I would say like now teachers have become my friends. So what I can share with my friends, I can share with my teachers. And to be honest, my teachers have never left us alone. Like they are constantly, like my class teacher, whenever she starts with a class, the first 15 minutes she spent in asking how are we doing. So like we can share with all our teachers freely. So like there's no like whom to approach first. Whoever is available to us, we just go to them and share our thoughts and feelings without any hesitation.
Right. So there isn't a preferred, I'd rather talk to my friends and my teachers. How does a teacher become a friend? That's really interesting. Like, what have you seen them doing to become more approachable, open, available?
Ma'am, actually, we all share our experiences. Like how for me, friends are like who we can relate to. And if I can relate to my teachers, like it's a daily routine. And then whatever they have been experiencing, we have been also experiencing same, like the type of thoughts we had during this pandemic. When we share same thoughts, then we interact more. So with these, I think that I have interacted more with my teachers and related more to them. That's why I think they have become a friend to me.
That's nice to know. So, Aditi, we'll go back to you. How do you think it helps? Have you seen it helping for any child to interact with a teacher in the manner that we hear from Janavi?
Ma'am, like e-counselor sessions, uh, we find it easier to talk to our friends rather than the teachers, but sometimes we should consult the teachers. For example, the counseling session, and uh, it has been a good interact. We have had some good interactive sessions because teachers uh, do talk to us not only about studies but other things also, and we have some flip teaching sessions also which make it very interactive.
Okay. So, is there anything that you would think of doing differently in your school, which now that we've got Roshan here listening to you, you've got a chance to speak with him directly about it. What do you think should be more of in the school that will help children to talk about their feeling of stress or their sense of loneliness or their sense of boredom, and what will enable that to happen? Like what more can be done? What can be enhanced?
Ma'am, I think students should be given permission in all the classes to talk freely to the teacher.
Okay, and how does the teacher have a life after that? Because I've got like 160 kids that I'm teaching. I'm supposed to listen to all of them. How do I manage my own family and my own children and the various things that I have to do?
Ma'am,
Aditi, if you're
sometimes,
speaking, yeah.
yes, ma'am. Ma'am, sometimes in the during the class also teachers should interact with students rather than only talking about studying, and they should ask them about how are they feeling right now during these tough times, and thus it makes it easier for the children also, and hearing it makes the teacher also feel good.
Right. So, Aditya, is that something that you would endorse?
Yeah, ma'am. I would
Considering that
say,
your parents are listening into every conversation you have in the house, and if you want your teacher to be openly sort of sharing stuff with you about your issues, do you feel that that would become a barrier to you, that your
uh,
mom and dad can hear you saying whatever you're saying?
no, ma'am.
No,
Uh,
because
Ma'am, because if I talk about my parents as well as my teachers, they both are like my friends.
all right.
My parents, they also behave with me like my friends as well as with my teachers. And ma'am, here we are talking about the counseling session also. So if I talk about myself, when I was in class 7th, I was not always in the class. I was not attending most of the classes. So like while talking to my counselor, so she's Tribuna ma'am, while talking with her, her way of making me understand was so nice and was so motivating that she motivated me to attend the classes, to do what the teacher says. So I think that yeah, the counseling sessions as well as the teachers in our class, all the teachers, all the subject teachers, like they motivate us. So I would say yeah, all the teachers are motivating us, and from the counseling session also I got motivated, and then after I started attending all the classes. And before, to be honest, before that in class 7th I was not attending most of the classes, thinking that yeah, yeah, this is going like we are attending the classes in online, so what's the need of attending the class, leave it. But like while talking to my teachers, like the way of their explaining that what my parents are doing for me, like they made me understand, they made me motivate, like they motivated me. So I think that yeah, they have like they are making us understand and feel the importance of them and our parents.
Right. I think there's that's the, a lovely example, and thank you so much for that, Aditya. I think there's been a lot of people who've also been dealing with sickness in their homes, right? Like, have you had that happen to the children in your class where they've had perhaps the virus, or they've been unwell, or somebody's had a death in the family? It could be a grandparent or a parent. It could even be somebody who's, a teacher or a staff member of the school. So how do you deal with that when that happens? Like, what's the kind of conversation that takes place? Are you able to talk about your worries and concerns and fears and to whom? Is it parents? Is it teachers? Is it like what is the space that you have to be able to deal with that?
So when the second wave started, actually there were many of my peers who got infected with their whole families, and even some of our teachers also. So like they were not able to attend the classes for a long time, like till the time they didn't recover, and any of us did not say anything to them because we already know how the situation is going around. And like me being a friend of any of my classmate or maybe any junior or senior, I helped the way I could. Like I gave them notes and what was going on in the classes, and our teachers were very supportive, and they also like broadcasted everything. And if we have any kind of problem, it's not just in the classes but also we can contact them personally, and we were able to ask freely from them if we could not attend the class or due to some problems. So that was something which was very supportive from both our teachers and fellow mates.
Right. So I think, Abhijit, if there's anything that you'd like to say here, because I can see that you're listening very intently. You want to add something to this, to what Swarnima said just now?
No, ma'am, not anything specifically.
Okay, how do you deal with fear of what was happening around you or hearing about what was happening around you?
I like talking to my friends about that, and my teachers and parents, and just have a positive attitude towards everything. Yeah.
How do you have that positive attitude? What helps you to have a positive attitude towards it?
I'm talking to friends and parents really helps, and we should always look towards the positive side of things rather than the negative. And yes, in that way we can.
Okay, so when you look for the positive side of things, what are some of the things that you think of? For example, when you're looking at like friends, like Swarnima said, being ill and not being able to attend school, and she said, I'm happy to give you notes and do things supportively for you. Is there anything of that kind which also was done by, was it supported by the school? Did the teachers suggest that you should be doing something like this? How did they manage this, so many children being unwell? Yeah, Janvi.
Yeah, ma'am. So I would love to add to what Swarnima said. So during this pandemic, we all have faced some rough times or any other problems which at times are really disturbing. So to avoid such anxieties and tough times for all of us, like our school came up with these wellness sessions. So these sessions are held by a counselor, and in these sessions our counselor gets to know the well-being of the students, and for that matter not only students but also the staff as well. So with these sessions they observe daily schedules of the students, how they are coping up with things, what is it that's really disturbing us and having a negative impact on us, and also telling us ways of how to deal with them, like various exercises, having a healthy diet, daily routine. And it happens once in a week for junior section, and as of senior section it used to happen in the substitution period, but now it is added in a schedule as well. So if I talk about its impact, then these sessions make things look so easy for all of us. They somehow definitely give us relief from anxiety and any other mental health issues we've been going through.
Thank you so much for that. That was very useful to know. The wellness session, anybody else likes to add to what we've heard Janvi say?
Yes, ma'am. So what Janvi said is true because I am in the junior section and I've attended some wellness sessions. So in that we have very different kinds of thing, and like having a long screen time. We have also got we had also got a webinar, I would say, with a doctor who told us the 20-20-20 rule. Like after every 20 minutes, look 20 feet away from that ways. So that really helped, and our teachers also give time between the classes to follow these things. And also in wellness sessions we have had certain personality tests, like teacher used to ask question, we used to write it down and then send it to the teacher, and she used to tell everything about everyone, and we used to get know more about our fellow mates and even ourselves.
Wonderful. So are these wellness sessions something that you look forward to? Is everybody participating in it? Does the whole class participate? Do 3 or 4 students talk about something, or is it like, what is the structure of these classes? Janvi, you've spoken a lot. I'd like to hear from anybody else as well, or otherwise I'm going to go back to you.
Ma'am,
Jashna, Aditya, anybody
ma'am,
else?
there are around 30 to 35 students in each of these sessions.
Thanks, Aditi. Yeah, tell me more about it. 35 students, and then how does it work? How does everybody get a voice?
Ma'am, the teacher, Triguna ma'am, she asks the students that what topics would they like to discuss, instead of deciding the topic herself, and whatever topics the students want to discuss, she discusses that. And in case any students want some specific attention, so she takes up one-to-one classes.
All right. So it's an optional session that you can attend if you want to.
Yes.
Is that how?
For some time it was put
All
into the schedule, and then it again became optional.
Okay. And Janvi, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I would just like to add that we, for this, we also had some child well-being survey. These survey were conducted by the school, in which the students were supposed to answer a few questions honestly. Like it included questions pertaining our daily routine, what we have in our breakfast, any sort of exercises we do, or any sort of problem we had due to these online classes or the screen timing, our physical measurements, etc., etc. So like with these, our teachers were able to find out the students well-being and getting more familiar with their mental health, and like finding out ways about how to like help them with more. So yeah, it's how that these wellness sessions did work.
This is really useful for everyone to hear. I think it's been a great conversation. I think we've got a lot of questions now. So let's move to those questions on the chat. I think, so Roshan, I have a feeling this question is for you, that how did you get cooperation from parents? And maybe the students can also talk about it. Like, how do parents perceive a class of this kind? Because like you heard Roshan saying earlier, that maybe parents are more focused on get your math right, get your science right. They may not like particularly understand why this kind of a wellness session has to be held. So what's the sense from parents, both from Roshan as well as the students, that how do parents perceive this?
My understanding, first of all, thank you so much, students. You just such beautifully articulated points and thoughtful ideas from all of you on these questions. It was lovely hearing from you, and would love to hear more from you. My perception is that the parents, actually, they do see value in this. Increasingly now, maybe right at the beginning of the pandemic, they wouldn't have. But I think, they've witnessed their children suffer in terms of their well-being, especially during this second wave lately, when there was, real chaos and a lot of tragedy around. I think a lot of parents realize the importance, and sometimes parents are helpless, that, my child is not feeling happy and I don't know what to do about it. So if anything, they're grateful that the school is trying to provide ways of, giving children the space to talk about their well-being. But I'd love to hear from the students.
Yeah, how do your parents respond to these classes?
Actually, there have been certain incidents in the starting when all these things started. There were like my family members used to come and see in between, like what am I doing. So sometimes it used to happen that it's a substitution period and we are discussing on certain topic which does not need, like which is not related from our course books, and we are sitting with our books closed and just speaking our heart out, and then parents, like family members, were like, you're not studying, you look like you're doing something else. But then when e-visits happened and my parents got to know that I and many of my fellow mates really love to participate in like expressing our views in different video conferences, which we have been doing every month. So then my parents were like, okay, if you like doing this, then it's fine. I'm like, my parents are supportive about this.
Okay, Aditya, you also wanted to add to that?
Yeah, ma'am. I would say that in the morning also, in the morning, the yoga sessions have been held. So where like the parents also participate. I have seen many parents, even my parents also, they participate there. In my campus, our sports teacher, Dominic sir and Anand sir, they held this session. So in which the parents, they participate and meditations are being done. So the parents also, they meditate themselves, they calm themselves in the morning. So yeah, like I wanted to say that.
It's become a school for everybody, not
Yeah,
just for
ma'am.
the
Yeah,
students.
ma'am.
Yeah, Shubham, is there a question that you're asking? Then I'm going to allow it. Otherwise, I won't.
Ma'am, actually, it is not a question.
That's
It's
a
just
question, not a statement.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, it isn't like a question. It's actually a statement on what you.
Then I'm not allowing it now. I'll allow it later. Hold on, hold your horses. Yeah. So Susan, would you like to ask the question yourself? Is Susan here? Yeah. Yes.
Yes. Let's see. It was a while back.
Yeah. You asked if different academic subjects may be perceived, how that might affect ways of thinking about teaching and learning mathematics in ways that support social emotional learning.
Yeah. So thank you. Yeah. So partly I was wondering. Because sometimes mathematics is viewed differently from social studies or language arts and other kinds of subjects. And so sometimes I was wondering if that might, I don't know if that might affect the way teachers or students view the subject and how to bring in some of the socio-emotional learning. So I was just really curious what other people were thinking about that, or maybe what the students' experiences have been with that.
That's a great question. Do your science teachers and your maths teachers also talk to you about other things, or is it always your social science teachers who talk, or language teachers who talk to you about everything else?
No, it's not like that. Like Janvi mentioned in the starting, that every teacher comes and starts with what we are actually feeling and how's everything going. So it has happened that some of the times the teacher, for half of the period, they are just talking freely with us, and then for the half of the period explaining certain topics. So that is the reason I feel that it's not completely burdened about the studies, but also our different subject teachers tell us about different things also.
Right. Yeah, Janvi?
Yeah, ma'am. If I talk like particularly mathematics, then I would say my maths teacher was like so into like meditation. She was, apart from maths also, she used to tell us various things like reading various books, not only like academics or something, but different to them. And she used to uh, apart from academics, she always told us various things. So I don't think like they were only into studies, or it's only the social science teachers who are apart from studies. So it was all of us having different views about. So yeah, my maths, I won't say that maths teacher are always into studies.
You're right. Right. So we've got a lot of comments from Shubham also in the chat, and I hope people have been reading it. He's talking about portion-hungry teachers, super bored students, not happy, not involved. How many in your class are feeling like that? That this is. I mean, like, do you find that the large number of students keep their videos off not because they're shy, but because they're bored? Or do you think that that's not true, that it's not really about, Aditi?
Ma'am, I think the major cause for students keeping their cameras off is actually boredom, because online platform everybody would agree that this platform is not as interesting as the physical one. So sometimes it even causes me to get bored. So I turn off my camera. I won't lie. It has happened with me also. So I think the main cause is boredom.
You're right. So Shubham may be right about saying super bored kids, and it's just that he's made it as a statement, didn't ask the question. But I think thank you for saying that, Aditi. It'll help him feel that yes, there are more children like him around the place. So if we were to look at boredom being one of the biggest issues, how do we deal with that? I mean, you've talked about how it's important for every teacher to feel that sense of connectedness. But what helps you to be not super bored? Which classes do you feel quite engaged and involved and interested in? And what makes that difference? Roshan had mentioned that perhaps it's classes where you can collaborate with each other, where you can have some work done together. Is that what actually makes it less boring? Or yeah, Aditya?
Ma'am, to listen a burden is so like there are certain classes being held. That is, first of all, I will name the community class where the works are being in collaboration. And if I talk about myself, today only I have done that. I have participated in that community class with one of my friends. So like we held that class. So we taught them a topic. We taught the parents about a topic, that is articles. So at that time we were interacting with the parents like a teacher. So our burden is we were not at that time, we were not feeling boring, and we were feeling very happy, like being a teacher. We are we are talking with the parents and asking them questions. So yeah, it was nice.
That sounds absolute fun. So that
Yeah,
sounds
ma'am.
like teachers have a lot of fun when they're teaching, but I mean, students obviously would have more fun if they also teach. Yeah, Aditi. Go
Ma'am,
for it.
Aditya said about community classes. One more class is counseling session, which we have been talking about very frequently. And honestly, counseling class is the most interesting class, which I find most interesting because we are free to talk. We don't talk about studies, so it relieves pressure from students' minds. And the teacher Triguna ma'am, she also talks with us very freely and very openly. There's no student teacher relation, there's only a friendship between Triguna ma'am and the students, so it's very interesting.
Lovely. Yeah, that's great to hear. I think we should actually, Jeshri, maybe invite her to, to the community of practice to speak about how she develops that bond with the students. Swarnima, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. So I wanted to say that every student or any person does not have the same, like the same interests, or I may say creativity. Like some may have boredom in a specific thing, and some may have like really interest in that thing. So if I talk about myself, like the thing which I enjoy the most among all the co-curricular activities are the video conferences with different schools of not only our country but also around the world. So like Roshan sir said, we involve certain sustainable development goals in that as well, like gender equality, quality education, no poverty, and we have a video conference on 20th, which is on the topic climate action. So we have been discussing about different things by now, and we have also heard and made friends within a few minutes through those video conferences, like around the world. So that is something I really enjoy.
These video conferences are something that's done with different schools in different countries.
Yes, ma'am, through Generation Global.
All right. Yeah. And that's how frequently does that happen? How many
Once
times?
a month, like every month.
So you look forward to doing that, and you have to do some work before the next month comes along?
We have it on 20th, so we have been like discussing. It's not any debate kind of thing. There's no winner, no loser. We just have dialogue and discussion on certain social topics. So we research about topics and like express our personal incidents and experiences. So that is the thing.
So why do you like it so much, Swarnima, that you can, A, it's not about any of your study topics, B, that you can, it's freewheeling, nobody's a winner, nobody's a loser. It all sounds like, so what is, I mean, like, what if all your learning was to be like that? Would that be a good way to do it?
Yes, I would say, of course, it would be a good way, and I've learned many things from that, like different cultures and traditions of different countries when they talk about what problems they have been facing, or maybe what things they have experienced. So I think that is a really good way of learning. And I already always liked speaking, but earlier I was like good at speaking only when in model class presentations and orientations, where I was given a certain matter to speak, learn and speak, and I used to speak that. But now after I've been participating in video conferences since 1 year, so I really feel confident, and one of the major reasons I'm talking here could also be that.
Awesome, that's brilliant. Yeah, Jeshna, something to add here?
Ma'am, the interesting class that I find is the classes with parents. The parents ask some questions like related to technologies and devices. So we students are we answer the questions like how to use this thing. That like one parent asked how to make a video of their child, like their child was studying like a primary kid, pre-primary kid. So they have to make videos for their kids. So they have to so they asked us how to make like a app which is used to make the video. So we told them many apps to make, and we how do we use those apps. So it gives us more confidence to talk, and like we were teaching them. So that was very interactive class for me.
Right, that's brilliant. That's lovely. Shubham, again, is that a question this time? No. All right, then hold on. I'll come back to you. Yeah, so I think, Roshan, you heard the students, you know that this is the kind of stuff they want to do, and this works for them the most. Now, how, as a management, does one respond to something like this? Knowing fully well yourself that as a student, you would have felt the same. I felt the same when I was a student. I've been really desperate to say, how do we kind of help shift the way schools are structured towards more of the kind of work that your students are doing? And kudos to you for being able to make that happen. How do we make it happen even more? Is there a chance? Is there a scope? Would you be able to respond to this?
Absolutely. Well, this is the starting point. Hearing from the students. So we're understanding what is working for them, what is not working for them, what they want, what they enjoy, what they benefit from, and then focusing on that. Because in this whole field of social emotional learning, that's really the key goal. If we're supporting their emotional well-being, the way to measure whether one is successful in that outcome is by hearing from the students. It's different from other interventions in a school. In terms, if you want to boost academic results, you don't necessarily go and ask the kids, how do you feel about this thing? I mean, you can, of course, but it's different. You need to look at measurable outcomes. You need to look at results. Sometimes there are aspects which are less enjoyable, but we have to do it anyway. But when it comes to socio-emotional learning, the student's voice is paramount. And so, here's an example, if you like, of if we want to talk about, how as a management, how as a leadership, we want to scale up something like this. We've drawn students here, the students who we've heard from today, from some of our school branches where, for various reasons, we've really accelerated the implementation of socio-emotional learning. The principals here have really prioritized it, and we provide a lot of support directly here in terms of human resourcing and expertise. Some people in the US working closely with these campuses on socio-emotional learning, and that's given us, that's enabled us to see what's working. And now, having done this for some time, we having brought in these experts from outside, we've asked them to now develop capacity, in-house, in amongst our own team, so that we can scale this up across the entire organization, so that every student across CMS has access to the amazing the well-being initiatives that the students here were talking about today. So because hiring outside expertise is not possible to scale up in that way, but our teachers, having interacted with these people for such a long time, are now learning more and more about this. So we have a program called the Virtues Sharing Circles, right? So this is aimed primarily initially at the teachers, where the teacher might focus, the group might focus on a particular virtue, and virtues meaning qualities and characteristics of how one might want to live one life better. But we might pick something like gratitude, and when it's in the wellness context, something like gratitude is good, and we talk about what are we grateful for, right? And teachers have a forum and opportunity created to do that, and they interact with each other and they express their feelings, and they get a chance to really, it's very motivational. It really helps with well-being. So now teachers who've been participating in this, where the external resource experts have been enabling that, these teachers have themselves developed expertise in how to conduct such sessions in a manner which is effective. And so two things are happening as a result of that. One is that they are further conducting such sessions for students, and the other is that they can be designated as sort of virtues leaders, if you like, or virtues coaches, to work across campuses and with their colleagues, and to scale up these circles further. So that's how we're making this a system-wide initiative.
That is just absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for that. Shubham, I'm going to let you speak now, because you've been very patient, and it's been lovely. So is
Kavita, there's also a question from Sushma.
Yeah, I will. That's, yeah, I thought that it had been addressed, but I can ask it again.
Yeah.
So Shubham, you get 1 minute.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, everyone was discussing about how, what classes everybody enjoys and stuff, like what classes are people getting so enjoyed, which classes they like the most. And in our school there isn't much of counseling, wellness period and stuff, but there are these, what do you call it, there are classes which optional classes such as sous chef, where where they teach you how to cook stuff at home, and game design, where they teach you how to design a game and stuff. Fleet Street, where they teach you how to write your own newspaper and blogs. These are the classes that I enjoy the most, because there is it's extracurricular, and it actually touches stuff that we as a student enjoy.
Thank you for that, Shubham. Anybody wants to respond from the CMS students to what Shubham just said? Would you like similar classes for yourselves? Yes, Janavi?
Ma'am, for what he said, I would like to add that we've been having those hobby classes, where summer camp as well, where we've been taught how to, have fireless cooking, and art and craft, and IT, and various we literary club. So these were some of the initiatives taken by our teachers, our school, to implement such to reduce our boredom. And also I would like to talk about in a class in which I am interested more. So it would be like junior youth empowerment program, so JYEP. So it's basically for the age group of 11 to 15 years old, where almost every person goes through physical, intellectual, and emotional changes. So, JYP focuses on developing speaking skills, power of expression, how to deal with day-to-day problems. So, to be more precise, to recognize one's capacities and capabilities, to express themselves freely. And what's the role of our school? It would be we have a series of books which we all can relate to, and these books contain they talk about the real purpose and the motive of our life through various holy writings. And how it works in our school curriculum is that the senior section students get trained to become animators, Also, animators would be are the youth who sort of play the role of a mentor in order to guide their junior youth. So, like after the students are trained well and become animators, they form their own junior youth group, which consists of students from classes 6 to 8. And if talking about my experience, then I am done with my training. And as of now, I am serving as an animator. Also, I have my own junior youth group with whom I have sessions once in a week, every Tuesday. So, there we read and discuss a book titled Breezes of Confirmation that tells us about the story of a girl named Nosonda and how she and her cousins think about their future. And we all try to relate to her story and share our thoughts. And then, just after few sessions, I established such great bonds with my junior youths, and now they all share their thoughts and opinions without any hesitation because they know that no one is going to judge me on basis of what I say. So, like legit, like last week, one of my junior youth approached me and told me how she didn't had many friends since she's a newcomer. But then after these sessions, she finds a good friend in all of us. So, if I talk about its outcome, then the youth becomes more comfortable in opening up, recognizes their own potential. They socially interact with everyone, share their emotions and feelings freely, also with learning impactful things. So it's like a like combined pack of social emotional learning, I would say. Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah, Abhijit, you can have the last word, or Aditi can, one of you.
Ma'am, I would like to share, add to what my friend Shubham just said. Our school has recently started these online hobby classes where the students can join various hobby clubs based on the interest. For example, we have an eco club where students learn about the importance of having a clean and green natural environment. Similarly, we have literary club, an art and craft club, and an IT and reasoning club. We have these hobby classes every Saturday. Now, what these hobby classes do is they sort of give students a chance to de-stress themselves and take their minds off academics while still remaining mentally active and productive. So I find these classes really interesting, and I'm part of the literary club, and we had a debate competition last Saturday, and we won the first prize.
Oh dear, I think he's lost signal.
Yeah.
Aditi, do you want to say what you want to, and we can have him complete when he comes back in?
Ma'am, if I talk about some interesting events that have been organized in my school, we also have some clubs, eco clubs, literary club, and I was a part of literary club. And when a class was conducted, our librarian, she used to show us videos regarding different stories, or we used to read the stories. Mostly we used to watch because she says that everyone says that we learn better when we watch. So we used to watch videos, and then she asked us questions regarding the same story, just to make sure that we were paying attention. And we have eco clubs, and also these are the interesting classes which are being conducted. And some classes which I would like to be conducted are, for example, web developing classes and video editing. My elder brother, he has these classes in his branch, so I would like to have these classes in my branch too.
Right. So different branches taking different initiatives and then eventually scaling across the schools. I guess that's where you're going to get them soon, is what I'm hearing from Roshan. Jeshna, you've been fairly quiet. Would you like to finish this session? Because we've got 3 minutes, I think, to go.
Ma'am, I would like to tell that the classes which like a dance class, music class, that are very interesting for the children to develop their mind. And the yoga classes that keeps the child fit and healthy. It is also and the music classes it improves on our vocals and what we say, like a voice. And the dance classes helps us to um, develop more, the body gets fit and we get the fitness. So we should be getting part in these activities to keep our body fit. Because in these times of COVID, we should be, our immunity should be strong, so that we don't get any disease. So we should
I
be
completely
healthy
agree with you.
mind.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Health. We should have healthy mind and body.
Absolutely. So I think the question that Susan's asking, Roshan, is like, how do we, listening to this, it's so apparent. And this is, I think, just endorsing it so beautifully that this is what children really enjoy, they are able to connect with. So what she's asking is, how do we make this happen for every subject in every classroom, right? So which is, I think, what you were sort of talking about earlier, which is to say, how do we make that happen? So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was the key point I was trying to make earlier, that how do we empower every teacher to deliver methodology like this in every class? So that, as an organization, as a leadership, we're creating, systemic structures for continuous professional development, creating space in the timetable for that. We revamping our sort of metrics for sort of seeing how teachers are doing in the classes. We have a department centrally which has people observing classes to see how teachers are doing. So what are they observing for? They should be observing more now for these sorts of characteristics of interactive classes and classes that are interesting. As interesting, I think, is a simple enough word to cover everything that we're talking about. So that needs to be at the core of what we are measuring and what we're looking for and what we're professionally developing our teachers to do.
Yeah. So thank you. That's brilliant. I think we all have lots to look forward to, more stories coming from City Montessori School in the future, and we will have you featured dramatically all over the place. If you carry on doing stuff like this, we're just too delighted and too excited about it. So I think, Jayashree, you do want feedback from everybody. I think everybody knows the format, so they've started giving the feedback now itself. Namrata, thank you so much for saying what you've done. We loved the workshop that we did with you all, and it was great that you're still using that. And it's lovely to hear you say that it's still impacting you. 2017 till now, 4 years, and you're still using it. I love that. That's brilliant. It makes us so happy to see this and hear this. So thanks. And Annette has put in the form for feedback.
There's a Google form.
Please do fill that in. Shubham, please fill in the form as well yourself, the feedback form. I just want to say Shubham's been on a panel earlier and he still comes in for our sessions. It looks like he does. I mean, is this the only one you've come in for because there are students, or did you come for the others as well?
No, ma'am. This is the second panel I've come for because
okay, because there are students.
I haven't gotten any other links, ma'am.
All right. So maybe what we need to do is make sure that all the students can come in and also have an interaction here. This will be a great space for everyone to talk with each other and listen to what the people who we care the most about, which is all of you students, what you are saying and what you're thinking is of paramount importance to us. So it's lovely, absolutely wonderful. I loved listening to all of you. Thank you so much.